Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're going to talk about a favorite cake of mine from years and years and years ago. It is the Hummingbird Cake. You may have heard of this cake. It was popular. I'm going to say it was probably popular in the late 70s, into the 80s, a little into the 90s. And it was really a very popular cake. You don't hear a lot about it now, probably because people are kind of health conscious, and this is not a particularly healthy cake. However, it's got a great story. It's a really good cake to have every now and again, okay? It has a really, really great story. It actually has two stories, so I'm going to tell you both stories. I also have two different cake recipes because the original version of the hummingbird cake is very different from the version that you probably have had if you have had a hummingbird cake. When you think of a hummingbird cake, you probably, if you've heard of one, think of a 2 or 3 layer cake that has various tropical fruits in it, some pecans, cream cheese frosting, and it's very sweet cake, very rich cake. It's like an ultra carrot cake. It's like that, okay? And that's probably the cake that you think of if you've heard of this cake, but that's not the original hummingbird cake. The original cake comes from the late 60s, and here's the story of the hummingbird cake. In 1968, the Jamaican airline Air Jamaica was established. The new company chose the Dr. Bird, which is the nickname of the streamer-tail or swallow-tailed hummingbird, as its logo. This hummingbird has a really long tail, so it kind of looks like it has a little tuxedo on, you know? So that's why it's called the Dr. Bird, because it looks like how doctors used to dress in the olden days. You know, you've probably seen old westerns or whatever with those old doctors in their suits. So, anyway, Jamaican Airlines chose the Dr. Bird, which is also the national bird of Jamaica, as its logo, and they had them painted on the tails of their airplanes. So this new airline, they got this beautiful hummingbird painted on the planes, and what did they want to do? They wanted to attract tourists to come to Jamaica. So they got together with the Jamaican Tourism Board to try and promote travel to Jamaica and to showcase the airline at the same time. So basically, they wanted you to buy tickets on Jamaican Air and fly to Jamaica and see how great Jamaica was. But how could they get Americans to fly to Jamaica? What would make an American want to fly to Jamaica? A cake, obviously. So the tourism board had someone create this cake, which was called the Dr. Bird Cake. It eventually became the Hummingbird Cake, but that was its first name, the Dr. Bird Cake. And what they did, they put together like a press packet for tourist organizations and airlines and travel clubs and whatever to use to promote Jamaica. And in this package was a recipe for this cake, and it had like other recipes for other Jamaican style foods that people might be able to make in America and say, oh, I want to go to Jamaica and eat these. However, a thing that you should know is you will not get a hummingbird cake or a Dr. Bird cake when you go to Jamaica, because it is not a Jamaican cake. It was a cake that was totally created for the American public to draw them to Jamaica. That's a fantastic reason to create a cake recipe, but it's also one of the best stories I've ever heard.
It feels like a foolproof way to draw Americans anywhere is to just make a cake,
Absolutely.
maybe put it underneath a cardboard box propped up with a stick.
Right.
You know, you can't lose.
Right. So this cake in the late 60s comes in the tourist packages, and they start promoting travel to Jamaica, and the cake recipe starts turning up in newspapers and magazines. So it kind of, I guess you would kind of say it swept the country a little bit, you know, because it was like an exciting new cake recipe in 1968. So the original cake was like a bundt cake, or a tube cake, as you call them. It didn't have any frosting on it. It was really like a spice cake. But what it did, it featured things that were Jamaican. So it had bananas in it, very exotic bananas in a cake, right? It had pineapple in it. It had vanilla in it, and it had cinnamon in it. Imagine you're a tourist and you go to Jamaica in 1969 on Jamaican Airlines, and you get there and you go to a really nice restaurant and you have your meal, and what do you want for dessert? And you say, I'd like a piece of hummingbird cake. And they look at you like you're insane. And they're like, what do you mean, a hummingbird cake? There's no hummingbird cake. Then you'd feel totally duped because you flew all the way to Jamaica based on the cake that you're not getting. So, anywho, this is a good cake, though. I'm telling you, this is a good cake. So, as far as anyone can find, looking on newspapers.com, the first time this recipe turned up in a newspaper was in March 19th of 1969 in a newspaper from New Jersey called The News. And there it went on to show up in papers all over the country. So it was a very popular cake. And like I said, it was a tube cake or a bundt cake. And this is actually a good cake. I made it. We like this version of it a lot better than the newer version because we are not, really sweet cakes, I'm not a huge fan.
We like the teeth that we have in our heads.
But I do like a carrot cake and a hummingbird cake every now and again, you know.
A carrot cake is not a sweet cake.
Well, no, not like a hummingbird cake, no. The great thing about the Dr. Bird cake, too, which was also promoted in the newspaper recipes, was that it keeps well. So that means that it has so much oil and sugar in it that it does not go bad quickly. So that's a good thing for a cake, which is, kind of like the old classic cakes like that.
Yeah,
that they
classic
were made,
fruit cake.
Yeah, you want to get a couple weeks out of them for, work lunches and whatnot. This cake would weigh your lunchbox down a good bit. If you like spice cake and you like bananas and pineapples and cinnamon and all that, if you like that, you will really enjoy this cake. It does not need icing. This is like if you want to just make a cake like a snack cake that you can cut a slice off and hold it in your hand and eat it. Good cake for that. Now, this has some interesting instructions, and I'm going to explain as I go along the instructions because you want to bear them in mind when we get to the next version of the hummingbird cake. So, here is the Dr. Bird cake from 1968. 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 cups of white sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1.5 cups of vegetable or canola oil, 8 ounces or an 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple, undrained. Crushed pineapple, not pineapple chunks of any sort, and undrained. 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla, 3 eggs beaten, and 2 cups of diced bananas. Do not crush. Now, these bananas are not the incredibly overripe bananas that we would use for a banana cake. You know how you make a banana cake or banana bread and you let your bananas get super ripe? These are just normally ripe bananas that are still creamy colored. What you want to do is take your bananas, cut them in half down the middle, cut them into strips. So it's basically you're quartering the banana, and then you're going to cut them into chunks, a little less than a half-inch chunk. 2 cups of diced bananas was like 2 bananas, really. 2 larger sized bananas made that much. When you make the cake, the pineapple is mixed in with the batter, right? But the pieces of banana show, and they're scattered throughout the cake. And it's really good. It's very different from a normal banana cake, but very good. So, and this is an easy cake, easy directions. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Grease and flour an 8 or 9 inch round tube or bundt pan. Grease it really well. Sift together your dry ingredients, and then add the undrained pineapple, the cooking oil, the vanilla, the eggs. Stir that up until it's blended. Don't overmix it though, but just stir it up until it's blended, and then fold in the bananas. Carefully stir them in so they don't get smushed. Now put your batter into the prepared cake pan, and then you're going to bake this for 1 hour and 20 minutes. or until the cake tests done with a toothpick, which it will. It's going to crack on the top a little bit, but just check it in a few places. Make sure you're not hitting a banana. When it's done, you're going to take that out and cool it on a cooling rack for 15 minutes, and then carefully invert that on another rack and remove the pan from the cake. Let it finish cooling, and there you go. That'll serve 12 to 16 or 24 people. You don't need a giant piece of it.
How many hummingbirds does it feed, though?
I'm not sure. I would say it would probably feed 1,000 hummingbirds. And there are no hummingbirds in this cake, actually. So,
well, it's made for hummingbirds.
So, imagine this cake comes to America. It's made for the American people to draw them to beautiful Jamaica. But of course, being as we are American people, the first thing everybody does is put nuts in it because it's not exciting enough. It needs nuts.
And hummingbirds classically eat nuts.
Oh, yeah.
With their beak is perfectly formed for that.
So first, the adulterated recipe began to show up with pecans in it, okay? But it was still a bundt cake. Then it starts to gain some popularity. And, it's in papers all over the country, and it's the hottest new thing in Jamaica. How exciting to go to Jamaica, right? Once they got the nuts in there, they were like, we got to do something else to spruce this cake up. So they made a glaze with pineapple juice and put that on top of the cake. And that started to show up in recipes. So then a lady named Mrs. L.H. Wiggins of Greensboro, North Carolina, submitted her recipe in February of 1978 to Southern Living magazine. Her version was a 3-layered frosted version with chopped pecans and cream cheese frosting.
I'm glad we know who to blame exactly.
Oh no, she made the hummingbird cake. It is the hummingbird cake. It is not the Dr. Bird cake anymore. So, the popular version of this cake recipe originated in Southern Living magazine. When I first found this out, I thought, oh, okay, that explains everything because first of all, the original cake that came in was perfect for the South. It had 2 cups of sugar and 1.5 cups of oil. So there you go. There's your southernness for the cake, right?
It was just missing cream cheese frosting.
Yeah, just missing pecans and cream cheese frosting. So somebody came along and rescued that cake and made it into a 3-layered icon. A couple of things I want you to remember because I'm going to give you the original Southern Living recipe. They said it was updated in 2024, but to me, I've looked at all the recipes and it looks exactly the same to me. I don't see a difference. I would say Southern Living is the historically accurate version of the 3-layer cream cheese frosted hummingbird cake. The one I gave you first is the original Dr. Bird cake, according to many newspapers in the United States. So, if you want to make a hummingbird cake, the Southern Living recipe is the go-to recipe. Do not use any other recipe. You will be sadly disappointed. And remember my instructions when you make the hummingbird cake, because if you don't, you will also be sadly disappointed. You cannot drain the juice from the pineapple. You need the pineapple juice and the crushed pineapple together. But the most important thing to remember is the bananas should be ripe, but not overripe, and they should be diced so that the pieces will be suspended in the cake layers. Whether you make the layered cake or the bundt/tube cake, do that. And don't drain the pineapple. I can't say it enough. So here is the Southern Living hummingbird cake recipe. You need 3 cups of all-purpose flour and a little extra for coating the pans, 2 cups of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 3 large eggs beaten, 1.5 cups of vegetable or canola oil, and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. 1 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple in juice undrained, and 2 cups of diced bananas, 1 cup of chopped pecans, toasted if desired. I did mine in 2 9-inch pans. You can also do it in 3 9-inch pans or 3 8-inch pans, whichever you have. So what you want to do, preheat your oven to 350 degrees, grease and flour your pans, however many you're choosing to use. Whisk together your flour, sugar, salt, baking soda, and cinnamon in a large bowl. Add the eggs and the oil and stir those until just blended. Then add the vanilla and the pineapple, stir those in. Then your bananas and your pecans and stir in to blend. Now you want to divide these evenly between the pans. What I did and what I do is I have a food scale and I weigh each pan to make sure they have the same amount of batter in them, because that's tricky. You don't want to have a fat layer and a thin layer, especially if you're doing 3 layers. Now you want to bake in a preheated oven for 25 to 30 minutes until a wooden pick comes out clean when you insert it. Cool in pans on wire racks for 10 minutes and then remove from the pans and cool completely. You can also line your pans with a circle of parchment paper to help the cakes come out easier. I didn't do that because I didn't think I would need to, and mine came out okay, but if you like to do that, go ahead and do it. Now you want your layers to cool completely. Get yourself a nice cake plate to set your cake up on, and we're going to make our cream cheese frosting now. This is a lot of frosting. It's actually a ridiculously huge amount of frosting, but if you do the 3-layer version, you need all of this. The 2-layer version, you could probably get by cutting this back by 1/3 or so, but go ahead and make all of it because who knows, you might want to do something else with it, so then you'll have it. So here's your cream cheese frosting. You need 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese softened, 1 cup of unsalted butter softened. If you don't have unsalted, go ahead and use salted, that's fine. 32 ounces of powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now, you want to beat your cream cheese and butter together with an electric mixer on medium-low until they're smooth. Make sure there's no chunks at all in there. Gradually add the powdered sugar, beating at low speed until blended. Mix in the vanilla, and then increase your speed to medium and beat until light and fluffy. And then cover that and set it aside. To assemble your cake, put your first layer on a serving platter and spread with 1 cup of the frosting. Set your second layer on, and again spread it with 1 cup of frosting. Top with the third layer and spread the remaining frosting over the top and sides of the cake. And then top it with chopped pecans, which is about like another 1/2 cup of pecans. I don't toast my pecans because I like them the way they are, but if you wanted to toast them, you can just do it in a dry skillet, break them up. I don't like to chop them for this. I would rather like snap them in half with my fingers for this cake to leave it a bigger piece of pecan. And you just put them in a skillet and warm them slowly, toss them around a little bit until they start to smell a little bit, and then they're toasted. Then let them cool before you put them on the cake. And then what you do is just the top, well, I've seen the sides done, but just the top is the best way to do it. Spread them evenly over the top of the frosting. If you want to put them on the sides, you can do that too, but geez, it takes a lot of pecans and it makes the cake harder to slice. So when you put the cake all together, I highly recommend putting it in the refrigerator and letting it set up before you try to slice it. And then have a very small piece of cake. No. This cake serves 100 people. No, this is a very sweet cake, but it is a fantastic cake. And everybody should try to make it at least once in their lifetime. The layer cake, because it's a pretty cake and it's kind of impressive, to serve it. It does serve a lot of people because you don't have a great big piece of it. So it is a very good cake. It's great with a cup of coffee and extremely delicious. However, the original version in the bundt pan, I'm telling you, it's a wonderful cake for I would say the fall, when you're doing spice things. And I know it has pineapple and banana in it, but it's a really good cake too. So there you go. The Dr. Bird cake and the Hummingbird cake. I hope you enjoy them sitting out on your porch, watching hummingbirds at the feeder, but I hope they don't attack your cake while you're eating it.
And make sure to check us out online on social media at Mary Mac Bakehouse and on our website, marymacbakehouse.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.